Transparency is the foundation of accountability. In this segment, you will see unfiltered and unedited reality. We are presenting raw, primary footage directly from the front lines of justice, offering you an objective window into the complexities of the law.
Are you calling security because of a transaction or because of me?
7 figures doesn't match your profile, sir.
Define profile.
Step aside while we review.
Pull the parent ownership file. Full
70%
access.
controlling interest.
So tell me, who exactly was the risk in this lobby?
The bank lobby carried the muted tension of late afternoon when people wanted to be finished with errands but were forced to wait anyway. The soft hum of fluorescent lights mixed with the steady whir of a money counter behind the glass. A queue snaked past velvet ropes. Shoes scuffed marble. Pens clicked against clipboards. At the far end of the counter, a black man stood alone at window 5. Mid-40s, relaxed posture, dark slacks, a simple jacket, no tie. He placed a folder on the counter and slid it forward with 2 fingers. I need to complete an investment transfer and authorize a cash movement from my account. The bank teller looked up automatically, then paused. Her eyes lingered longer than necessary, moving from his hands to his face, then back to the folder. Her smile faded in stages, replaced by something tighter. How much are we talking about? 7 figures, he replied calmly. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. She did not type right away. Instead, she glanced toward the security desk near the entrance, then back at him. That's a very unusual request, she said. It's scheduled, he replied. Everything is documented. She finally took his identification, studied it, turned it over, checked the photo twice. Her chair creaked as she leaned back slightly, creating distance. Sir, I'm going to need to verify this. Of course. She typed again, faster now. The screen reflected faintly in her glasses. Her jaw tightened. A quiet exhale escaped her nose. I'm seeing some discrepancies, she said. What kind? Activity that doesn't match your profile. The word profile hung there vague and loaded. The man's expression did not change. He had heard that word before in rooms just like this. Can you be more specific? Large movements like this usually come from corporate representatives or private banking clients. He nodded once. That's correct. She looked up sharply. But you're not flagged as one. The line behind him slowed. A woman checked her watch. A man shifted his weight, listening now. The lobby felt closer, tighter. I've done this here before, the man said. Not at this branch. Her voice grew firmer, louder than necessary. For security reasons, I can't proceed without additional authorization. Authorization from whom? From management and security. She pressed a button beneath the counter. Somewhere near the entrance, a uniformed guard straightened and began walking over. Heads turned. Phones appeared in hands half hidden, half raised. Sir, she said, keeping her eyes on the screen until this is resolved, I'm going to need you to step back. The guard stopped just behind him, close enough to be felt. The man did not move right away. He looked at the teller, then at the people watching, then at the camera mounted above the counter, its red light steady. Are you calling security because of a transaction, he asked, or because of me? The teller's lips pressed together. She did not answer the question. She picked up her phone and spoke quietly into it. I need a manager at window 5, now. What had begun as a routine visit had crossed an invisible line. Not with shouting, not with force, but with suspicion made public, backed by authority, and watched by a room full of strangers. Within minutes, the truth buried in the bank's own records would surface. And when it did, no one in that lobby would forget who had called security first. The tension at window 5 did not explain who the man was. To understand that the story has to step back away from the polished marble and the watchful eyes to a very different beginning. Marcus Hale did not grow up around banks. He grew up around numbers written on scrap paper budgets that never quite balanced conversations about bills whispered late at night. His mother worked 2 jobs. His father ran a small repair business that barely survived month to month. Money was not abstract to Marcus. It was pressure. It was consequence. He learned early that visibility was a risk. The louder people talked about success, the more attention they attracted. So Marcus learned to build quietly. He studied finance not through mentors, but through filings, annual reports, acquisition disclosures. Most people never read. While others chased quick returns, he tracked ownership structures and voting power. After college, he worked in the background of investment firms that never put his name on the website. He analyzed failing companies. He bought pieces others ignored. He understood that control did not require headlines, only patience. Over time, small percentages accumulated. 5%? 10? 20. Each acquisition routed through holding companies designed to stay invisible. The bank where he now stood had been one of his earliest long-term plays. Years ago, it had been vulnerable. Weak governance. Fragmented shareholders. Marcus recognized the opportunity and moved carefully. No announcements, no press. Just steady accumulation through entities that attracted no attention. By the time regulators noticed the shift, it was already done. Marcus Hale owned 70% of the parent investment group. He declined a board seat. Declined interviews. He preferred leverage without recognition. Influence without explanation. Inside the bank, none of that was common knowledge. Branch employees saw customers, screens, profiles built from surface data. They were trained to trust instinct when something felt off to escalate rather than pause. That training rewarded caution without teaching reflection. The teller at window 5 had built her confidence that way. She had stopped transactions before. She had called security before. Each time management backed her decisions. Better safe than sorry became permission. Patterns went unchallenged as long as they were framed as vigilance. She had never been told to ask herself why certain customers felt suspicious. She had never been required to justify the instinct, only the action. Over time, the line between risk and bias blurred until it disappeared entirely. Back in the lobby, those two histories were on a collision course. One shaped by restraint and long vision, the other shaped by unchecked assumptions and institutional approval. Neither had said anything explicitly racist. Neither needed to. The imbalance was already there. Marcus stood calmly because he had learned long ago that panic gave away power. He knew records existed. He knew systems remembered everything, even when people hoped they would not. The teller believed escalation protected her. She did not yet understand it also created witnesses. The manager was already on his way. Security was already involved. And buried in the bank's own database was a truth that would rewrite the entire encounter in seconds. The only question left was how much damage would be done before someone chose to look. The manager arrived with a practiced calm that did not match the situation. Mid-50s tailored suit measured steps. He stopped just short of the counter and took in the scene in one glance. The teller rigid behind the glass. The security guard standing too close. The small crowd pretending not to stare. "Sir, I'm the branch manager," he said. "I understand there's a concern." Marcus nodded. "There is, and it was created, not discovered." The teller spoke before the manager could continue. "He's attempting a high-value transfer that doesn't align with his customer profile. I followed protocol and called security." Marcus turned slightly just enough to include the room. "Which profile are we talking about?" The manager raised a hand. "Let's slow this down." "It's already slow," Marcus replied. "It just isn't fair." The security guard shifted his stance, suddenly aware of the attention. A woman near the waiting area lifted her phone higher, no longer pretending. A man whispered they called security on him. The teller's voice grew sharper, defensive. "We can't ignore red flags. Name one that isn't based on assumption." She hesitated. "Large-scale investors usually work through private banking channels." Marcus nodded. "That's true. And they also walk into branches when they choose." The manager glanced at the screen, then at Marcus's identification. His eyes lingered longer than before. He typed navigating beyond the surface-level interface the teller used. The screen changed. Data loaded. He frowned slightly. "Sir, can you explain the nature of your investment relationship with this institution?" "I can," Marcus said. "But you don't need me to. Your system already knows." The manager paused. Pride met caution. Around them, the lobby felt suspended. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the security guard seemed unsure of his role now. The teller leaned forward. "This is getting out of hand." "No," Marcus replied. "This is getting documented." The manager typed again, deeper this time, entering credentials that unlocked restricted views. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly. He cleared his throat. "Just a moment. That was enough." The crowd sensed it. Whispers grew louder. The teller's confidence wavered, replaced by irritation that masked something closer to fear. Marcus remained still. He did not press. He did not explain. He understood escalation better than anyone in that room. He knew that once authority began to question itself, the outcome was already changing. The manager stared at the screen again. then finally looked up at Marcus with a different expression entirely. Not suspicion. Recognition struggling to surface. The escalation was complete. Security had been called. Witnesses were present. Records were open. The next step would not belong to instinct or assumption. It would belong to the truth. The manager did not invite Marcus into the office yet. That hesitation mattered. Instead, he glanced at the security guard and gave a small nod. "Stand by here." The guard moved closer, positioning himself at Marcus's side rather than behind him now, but the message was the same. "You are being managed." The teller watched from behind the glass arms, folded tight eyes fixed forward as if daring the situation to resolve in her favor. "Sir," the manager said, "we're going to need you to step away from the counter while we complete our review." Marcus looked around the lobby, at the people watching, at the phones no longer hidden. Then he stepped aside one measured pace, stopping exactly where the guard indicated. The shift was subtle but unmistakable. He was no longer a customer at a window. He was a subject in the open space of the lobby, separated from the counter, separated from control. Conversations stopped entirely now. The room had chosen its focus. The guard cleared his throat. "Please remain here." Marcus nodded. "I intend to." Time slowed. The manager returned to the terminal, typing, scrolling, stopping, starting again. The teller leaned in, whispering sharply. He couldn't hear the words, but he recognized the posture. Defense. Justification. The kind people used when they sensed their authority slipping. A woman near the seating area shook her head. "This is embarrassing," she murmured, not quietly enough. For who someone else replied. Marcus kept his hands visible. He had learned long ago that stillness could be misread as defiance, so he adjusted just enough to remove doubt. Calm was not submission. It was control. Inside, his thoughts were already moving ahead. Incident reports, compliance reviews, duty of care. He had invested in institutions long enough to know exactly where they broke their own rules. This was one of those moments. The teller's voice rose suddenly. "We followed procedure." The manager cut her off. "Lower your voice." That interruption landed harder than any accusation. Her face flushed. The guard shifted again, no longer sure which way to face. Marcus spoke quietly, but the room heard him. "I was accused publicly. Security was called publicly. Whatever you find in that system doesn't change what's already happened out here." The manager did not respond. He kept reading. The screen reflected in his glasses now showed something different. Numbers, percentages, names connected by lines most people never saw. The injustice was complete long before the truth appeared. It was complete the moment suspicion became spectacle, the moment authority was used not to clarify but to control, the moment a man standing in his own bank was treated as a threat instead of a client. Marcus waited. Not because he had to, but because the system was about to correct itself in the most public way possible. The silence stretched. And then the manager inhaled sharply as if bracing for impact. The manager turned the monitor slightly, angling it away from the teller and toward himself as if the information might escape if seen too widely. His eyes moved left to right, then stopped. He scrolled back up, checked the header, checked the percentage column again. His throat tightened. He stood straighter without realizing it. "Sir," he said carefully, "can you confirm your full legal name?" "Marcus Hale." The manager typed it in again, this time into a different field, one rarely accessed at branch level. The system paused, then populated with a hierarchy most employees never saw. Parent entity, holding group, voting control, 70%. The manager's face lost its color in a slow wave. He stared at the number as if it might change if given enough time. It did not. He turned the screen fully toward himself, then back again, then finally toward the teller. She leaned in irritation, still written across her face until her eyes found the same number. Her expression collapsed in stages. First confusion, then disbelief, then fear. "That's not possible," she said quietly. "It is," the manager replied. The security guard took an involuntary step back. Phones in the lobby rose higher. A low murmur spread, no longer whispered. People understood something had shifted, even if they did not yet know what. Marcus spoke evenly. "You called security on a controlling owner of this institution. In public. Based on assumption." The teller's hands shook. "I didn't know. Knowing is not the standard," Marcus said. "Conduct is." The manager swallowed hard. "Mr. Hale, on behalf of the bank, I apologize for how this was handled. This should never have escalated. It escalated the moment security was called, Marcus replied. Everything after that was just confirmation. The manager nodded too quickly. We will address this immediately. Addressing it quietly will not undo what happened out here. Silence filled the lobby. The teller stared at the counter, unable to look up. The guard shifted to the side, suddenly eager to disappear into the background. Marcus did not raise his voice. He did not reveal his ownership with pride. He stated it the way facts were meant to be stated, plainly, without performance. This branch, he said, treated me the way it would treat someone without options. That matters more than who I am. The truth had surfaced. Not dramatically, not loudly. Just enough to strip away every justification that came before it. And everyone in that room knew that whatever followed would not be contained to that afternoon. The aftermath did not wait for the lobby to clear. It began the moment Marcus Hale stepped away from the counter and sat in the manager's office door, half open, voices low but urgent on the other side of the glass. Phones vibrated across the room. Someone had already posted a clip. Another customer had sent an email to corporate compliance before leaving the building. By the end of the hour, the branch's internal incident channel was lit up. The phrase security escalation was replaced with discriminatory service concern. Footage was flagged for preservation. Badge logs pulled. Timestamps matched against policy language that left little room for interpretation. Marcus did not raise demands. He asked for documentation, names, procedures followed, procedures ignored. He asked for written explanations, not apologies. Those requests alone changed the tone of the room. This was no longer a customer complaint. It was exposure. Corporate compliance intervened before sunset. The teller was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The manager was instructed not to contact her directly. Security protocols were frozen. Statements were drafted and redrafted, stripped of defensive language by attorneys who recognized the risk immediately. Within days, a formal complaint was filed alleging discrimination, defamation, and denial of service. The filing was precise. It cited federal banking regulations, state civil rights statutes, and internal policy violations. The lobby footage was attached. So were witness statements. The case did not rely on Marcus's ownership. It relied on conduct. Public pressure followed. Advocacy groups took notice. Financial regulators requested briefings. Shareholders asked why a controlling investor had been treated like a threat inside his own institution. The bank's stock dipped not sharply but noticeably enough to trigger concern. The investigation widened. Past incidents at the branch were re-examined. Patterns emerged that had once been dismissed as isolated judgment calls. They were no longer isolated when viewed together. The teller was terminated. The decision came quietly, but the reasoning did not. Violation of non-discrimination policy. Improper escalation. Failure to follow de-escalation standards. The manager received formal discipline and mandatory retraining, followed by reassignment away from customer-facing operations. The bank issued a public apology that avoided names but acknowledged harm. New training protocols were announced. Independent audits scheduled. Oversight increased. None of it was optional anymore. Marcus declined a board appearance. He declined interviews. He accepted a settlement that prioritized structural reform over personal compensation. His statement was brief. Accountability matters more than embarrassment. What followed was not celebration. It was correction. Careers altered. Policies rewritten. A quiet understanding spreading through the institution that escalation had consequences when witnesses and records aligned. Justice did not arrive with a press conference. It arrived through process, through files opened and not closed, through decisions made by people who understood that what happened in that lobby could not be explained away. And it arrived because someone refused to let a moment of bias pass as procedure. The final lesson of what happened inside that bank branch is not about ownership percentages or dramatic reversals of power. It is about how quickly ordinary bias becomes institutional harm when no one stops it early. Legally, banks are bound by strict non-discrimination laws. Customers cannot be denied service, delayed, or treated as security risks based on race appearance or subjective discomfort. Calling security is not a neutral act. It is an escalation that carries legal weight. Once it happens without objective cause, it exposes the institution to civil liability, regulatory scrutiny, and reputational damage that no apology can erase. What failed here was not policy on paper. It was judgment in practice. The teller relied on instinct instead of evidence. The manager deferred instead of intervening. Security presence was used to control a situation that never required control. Each step compounded the one before it, turning a routine transaction into a public violation. There is also a deeper psychological truth. Bias often hides behind words like caution protocol and safety. People convince themselves they are being responsible when they are actually being selective. When that behavior is repeatedly validated by supervisors, it hardens into habit. Habit becomes culture. Culture becomes risk. For the public, the lessons are practical and urgent. Stay calm. Ask clear questions. Notice the words being used. Suspicious profile security. These are not harmless terms. They define the record. Cameras matter. Witnesses matter. Documentation matters. You do not need to argue loudly to protect yourself. You need to be precise and visible. Marcus Hale did not reveal his ownership to gain leverage. He let the system uncover the truth on its own. That mattered. It kept the focus on conduct rather than status. It exposed how the institution treated him before it knew who he was. That is why this story resonates. Not because he owned 70%, but because the treatment happened before that fact surfaced. Because the same decisions would have been made if he owned nothing at all. Most people will never control a financial institution. That is exactly why accountability matters. Because justice cannot depend on hidden power or quiet influence. It must depend on rules applied equally and challenged when they are not. What happened in that lobby became a lesson only because it was recorded, questioned, and followed through. Without that, it would have vanished as just another uncomfortable moment. The question that remains is simple. How many similar encounters end with silence instead of correction?
Uncovering the truth is more important now than ever. Our goal is to hold power to account by letting the evidence speak for itself. The records don't lie. Thanks for watching and being part of this journey.